Hey there, everybody. It is Jeff Wellstead, the founder of Big Bear Partners, which is a strategic HR consultancy that also now focuses primarily on the use of AI in human resource technologies. I've been going now for, gosh, about 14 years, kind of acting as an interim, kind of HR builder for typically fast growth tech and biotech companies, kind of building the HR function from scratch. And a big part of that process has always ever been the HR tech stack, if you will. Trying to figure out how to streamline what are otherwise extraordinarily busy and difficult, functions like recruitment, like onboarding, like, building systems of record, and then on to things like performance and development, and all sorts of things. Because I work with smaller companies, who typically don't have huge budgets and can't necessarily afford, nor is it appropriate for them to buy an all-in-one ERP system. Oftentimes, folks end up having to kind of pick and choose, different types of systems, and then somehow figure out how to knit them together so that critical information passes from one to the other throughout the course of the employee lifecycle. I am here today with a fascinating individual who is and has built a wonderfully interesting company that solves for a lot of what it was I just talked about. And I'll talk a little bit more about the frustrations associated, certainly with my experience and the experience of the companies I've supported from an HR tech perspective. But we may be onto a solution here. This is going to be interesting. So Kristjansson, if I've got that right, is the individual, the co-founder of a company called 50 Skills, which I learned about, frankly, about a year and a half ago. I got a cold call from one of his business development folks, and I couldn't for the life of me cotton on to what it was a company called 50 Skills would actually mean. But then I suddenly realized, as she very gently explained it to me, this was something I didn't anticipate at all, and frankly didn't even know existed. But I was thrilled to hear about it, and it was great because Kristjan and I have been in touch over the course of all that time, but most recently at the CIPD HR Tech Conference, and had a big old sit down and chat. And he caught me up on the latest and greatest functions and features and so forth that these guys have built into 50 Skills. I'm excited to talk about this today, and it's relevant to me from an AI and HR tech perspective because the generative AI experience has got us to a point where we've all had a bit of a play with things like ChatGPT 4.0, with Gemini, with possibly Anthropic's, kind of tooling. Claude 3, I think Claude 3 Sonnet has just been released, and we've had a bit of fun with it, right? We've built job descriptions, we've created resumes, we've done some search and select activity, we've asked it some really difficult questions, and it's produced fancy tables that frankly would take us hours to otherwise do. And it's like, okay, that's all cool and it's interesting, but where does AI take us from here? And where AI ultimately is going to be going is it's going to become a true action-oriented and task management assistant, wherein basically you can give it access to all of your business intelligence and ERP tools and basically tell it to go away and do things. And it responds back in a very, very effective and a very seemingly intelligent manner and says, tell me more about what it is you want, and I'll go and fix it, and I'll come back to you in a couple of seconds and let you know that it's done. Well, that's easier said than done. Those interconnectivities oftentimes require a level of integration build in the background to kind of make all of that stuff happen. It's not as if you can just press a magic button and poof, there it is. Then again, when I ran into Kristjan and I talked to him about what 50 Skills does, potentially it might actually not potentially, it actually does take us much farther down this road in terms of knitting together all of these technologies at a very deep level, a very powerful level. Having said all of that, I'm going to stop talking. You'll be happy to know. And I'm going to turn it over to Kristjan, and I want him to introduce himself, and I want him to talk about his journey in terms of 50 Skills, dating, I think, all the way back to what, 2017, was it?
Yeah.
Blimey. Okay, cool. Good. Well, yeah, handing it over to you now. Talk to me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jeff. And thanks for being on here, doing this talk. So I'm Kristjan, and as Jeff mentioned, I'm the co-founder and CEO at 50 Skills. And what we do is that we have a software that helps employers to automate their people processes. So basically build and configure any type of process that involves people. And then within that process, you can add AI to put on full automation or manual automation wherever you want it to be. And I'll kind of walk you through some steps and how we got there and how that happened, and some of the thinking behind how you can actually take things like AI and make things more productive at the workplace. So, Jeff, I'm wondering what would be the best here. We want me to talk through the story from the beginning and how we got to where we are today.
Yeah, look, yeah, just a little bit of color about who you are and
Yeah,
how you got to this thing and what you've kind of found with it. And then what we, of course, all of us would like to see is how the product actually works, because it is a little bit of magic, to be honest.
exactly. So in the beginning, we actually started out with a different product that we called Hire, and was helping people to automate how they would um, take care of all the aspects from posting a job post into figuring out who they wanted to hire and how to onboard those people. And the first product we started with in the beginning was really intended to integrate all the different products and tools that were out there in the hiring process. And
Mm,
that's how we got started at the beginning, completely bootstrapped as a company for a couple of years there, but did pretty well. What we soon learned is that what we were doing in the onboarding process was the part that people really felt was unique. And so what we were doing in the beginning was that we were kind of meeting companies. We were mapping up how they wanted their onboarding to be. And then we would go and build that for them. And they would kind of be happy with what they have. But if they wanted to make any changes, they'd need to come back to the company,
mm.
talk with us. So what we did after a couple of years doing this, we had to sit down with our customers. We were kind of wondering, look, like, let's forget about our product. Let's just talk about, like, in a dream world, how would you want these processes to be managed? Like, how would you actually want this thing to be, like, from the idea stage of how you want to build it into actually running things through it, into actually making iterations? Like, how does it work? And what are these processes internally that you have? And turns out that what they wanted was a product where they could go and build things on their own in a very like interface that they could actually understand and use, not something that they would need a technical person using. They wanted something that would integrate with everything that they used in an easy way, no matter what it would be. And they didn't want it to work in a way that if they wanted to make changes, that they'd need to kind of pick up the phone with someone on an expensive call. They wanted that to just to kind of be more like they could do everything in the product, and they would more just need guidance on how it was done.
Okay.
And there was a couple of things there that were missing, like having that overview of how everyone travels through a certain process. And so anyway, that kind of got us thinking into mapping and building up a completely new type of product
Okay.
that we completely redesigned from the get-go, and which is the new flagship of our company, a product that we call Journeys. And we raised venture capital to build that one. We're now a team of about 20 plus people and growing pretty fast. And this is a new type of product, the one I really wanted to deep dive with you. And what's really been a big amplifier for us and helping us grow is AI, because AI is a huge component in how you can actually put that into a process to really make it more effective. So,
Okay.
also, Jeff, it may maybe sense if I just kind of, instead of just talking about it, explain a little bit of the concept,
Mhm.
and then maybe showcase some of the benefits of how things like these could be implemented, and then we could kind of go in a deep dive on it.
That sounds great.
So, to begin with, how it works is that as an employer, there's a bunch of services that you need to make sure your employers have.
Mhm.
It can be, if you think about all the things that happen for you as an employer when you have employees, from the moment you need to hire them, onboard them, service them as existing employees, through all the things that come up. And there are various things that come up, ranging from people going on maternity leave, um, people requesting all sorts of equipment and training services, harassment complaints. There are things that come up that you don't want to have come up, and there are things that come up that you want to make sure you're servicing them to the best of all of their needs at all times.
Indeed.
And what you can do with Journeys is that you can simply tell them, look, go to this place here, and when you go there, it's going to be a single place you go to where you can basically ask for all the services you need. You can think of it as a portal where you can go into if you're an employee, or you can break that portal into as many steps and stages as you want. So it could be one portal for employees, one for managers, one for
Hmm.
people being onboarded. Every kind of step of the service where you want that to have a separate page for the different things they need. Now,
Okay.
the only thing the employee needs to do is to fill out the form that's there that could have the required information to take that forward. If that would be something like a maternity leave, you'd need to know, okay, what's happening? What's going on? If it would be something like, request for hiring a new person, you might need to, as an employer, you need to know why. Like, did someone leave the company? Do you need more resources? Kind of all the reasoning behind what's going on there.
Mm-hmm.
And what's going to happen next is once that's get filled out, is that a process takes care of the rest. A process that's been configured, that's been set up to have the accurate funnel of how you as an employer takes care of those sorts of requests. And that funnel can be manual in terms of the request goes to someone. So let's say that you are the employer and I'm the employee, and I'm asking about something, and it can go your way and you can evaluate it and you can click a button to say yes or no, or let's review better. And then it's going to go its separate way in that funnel. But it can also be built in a way where you have the AI taking a look at this and you've told the AI specifically what to do. And the AI will then continue automatically, or the AI will tell you as an employer what the AI thinks you should do and the reasoning behind it. And then you can click a button to move forward. And I can show you a little bit of
yeah. I'm dying to see this now.
Exactly how that would work. But you kind of get the gist here. So what most employers do when they take on something like this is that we kind of try to encourage them of saying, look, where's your biggest pain point? Where's the most time being wasted and energy being wasted? Where do you have your employees doing a lot of admin work instead of actually doing the face-to-face human work that that they should be doing, and have the tech take care of the rest? And kind of take that one process at a time. So I think with that intro, I think it makes sense to just kind of show you and explain how that will work. So let me just share the screen here. Just do a full screen here. Makes sense. So if I just go here into the browser part to begin with, this is just one view of the portal. So imagine you have a portal for employees with a bunch of different things that, if they need something, they have a place to go to. And then you can have another one for managers and another one for something else. So you could have this as a separate page for each, or one page for both. And you can basically just click, like if someone is going on maternity leave, there's a bunch of things they need to fill out, information required for the employer. If they're doing something else, if it needs to like order employee clothes, whatever it might be, like they're customer facing or not, like there are templates with these things built in. But then the employer, of course, this is different for every employer. So how, like what the specific questions are, what the specific details are and rules and everything, this can all be configured by the employer themselves. But the interesting thing is that once they fill this out, whatever it may be, like a new hire request or something, is what happens behind the hood. And what happens behind the hood is the system itself. And the system itself looks like this. So you have a list of all the different journeys that you've built out in the system in one place. And it could be an onboarding journey, for example, would look like this, where you have kind of all the actions. So once somebody fills out, once somebody's getting onboarded, you've decided to hire someone, let's say in your recruiting system. What you then have happening is that you have that individual automatically put into this onboarding funnel. And this funnel is built out of different actions. The first action here is to ask that individual to fill out a form. So the second that somebody gets added to this, they're going to get an email and a text message in this case, because that's kind of been configured here. And that's going to tell them like, hey, like, and we call it a traveler because it's a traveler going through the journey itself. So it says, hey, if you'd be a new hire here, it'd say, hey, Jeff, excited to have you on the team. And you can, of course, change this text into whatever you want it to be. And it's going to send you a link to this particular form. Now, the form itself, if I just go here back, the form itself, you can take a look at how that looks like. You can configure the form itself and add new information to it. But this is the form where you collect all the info that you need for this new employee. And once they've filled that out, it's going to move on to the next action, informing a manager about it. It's going to move on to the next action in manually or automatically creating the employment contract with all the info you need. send it to e-signing with whatever tool you want. And then we call this a branch. It's going to trigger all the things below this branch at the same time. In this case, it's going to trigger off a new hire buddy program with all the details there. It's going to wait for 7 days until someone starts, or 2 weeks before they start, or 2 days, whatever you want it to be. So it's completely customizable. And it's then going to do a bunch of things like create people in different systems. In this case, it's going to create a user in the HR system. It's going to send a message on Teams to all of the people on a specific channel. And it's going to say something like, hey, John is joining us in 7 days. Make sure to make them feel welcome. And because you asked them about their LinkedIn, you can say things like welcome them by adding them on LinkedIn. And because you had a form here in the beginning where you requested a bunch of info and you had a question, what's your LinkedIn? And so you can just put that here. And so you make sure that whatever they responded there is going to go to that place. So you can really see, like, this is an example of a rather, I'd say onboarding is a rather complicated type of journey where you really, like, you have a lot of actions that might take the course of pre-boarding before they start and post after they start for maybe many months ahead. But you can really configure this and put all the people you're onboarding into here. And you can then just watch the whole thing be completely stressless and see how every single individual travels through it. And that's the other thing here. You'll see, like, all the people that went through this process, the onboarding here hasn't started for them. But if you take someone like just Kristjan here as an example, you can see that this journey started for them and they got sent the form, they filled out the form, and then the next action here in place didn't work out because it's a demo, didn't have the proper email or something. But you kind of see how they travel through it, and you want to make sure all these actions are green in color, and then where it's been, where everything is in the process. And you can see if it hasn't started for someone, it looks like this. You can have it automatically start, or you can start it manually by just kind of clicking the play button here. And now okay, this just sent the form out to this individual. He got the email. He didn't get the text because he didn't have a phone number registered, or it was an incorrect number for whatever reason. So the system also tells you if something works or doesn't. So that's kind of the basics of just
that's the gist of it. So basically, you showed, I guess, to a degree, how it is you kind of click and drag boxes over to kind of like start to make this, but you're going to actually, I think, kind of show us a little bit more in detail how this works. But look, I mean, I'm playing devil's advocate here. I'm playing a newbie who's just come to this, and I'm like, how is it that this clicking and dragging of boxes in a particular order is actually initiating these kind of digital experiences for people and doing a multivariate number of things. I mean, you're talking about talking to teams, about things happening on Slack, things happening in my HR system, things coming from my ATS solution. It's like, whoa, there's got to be a whole bunch of stuff that's happening in the background that's kind of making that happen. How does that come about?
Absolutely. And I think the trick here is, again, because we started as because this product is workflow first and integration first, that's the foundation of this product. You're able to build a user interface, making it easy for people to connect those things together.
Okay.
So here, for example, I'm in the builder itself. And as an example, let's say that I just want to build something now. I can just pick whatever action I want. Now, the system comes with all these pre-built actions, like sending an email or a text message, or creating a calendar event, or waiting for a couple of days before you do something, or sending something out on a specific date. So we could, for example, like, let's just say, hey, wait for, and we'll say, well, we have the elections happening now, right? So maybe wait until a specific date. I think it's on, what is it, July 17th, right?
July 4th. It's actually today. Oh, you're talking about, the UK. UK elections. Yeah, it's today.
UK elections, new PM announced maybe around this time. Let's just say that's the case.
Cool. Okay.
So you're going to wait until July 17th, and then you want the next thing to happen. And that could be sending out a text message or email or doing something else. Or, like you mentioned, because you have all these integrations added, and you can add as many integrations you want, you can also have it do actions in all these other tools that you already use. So if you're using Microsoft Teams to send communication messages between your workplace, instead of sending a text message to the person's phone number, like, hey, we have a new PM, this would happen. You could also, instead of having it a text message, you could also have it a message on Teams or Slack or whatever tool you use for communication.
Okay.
And you just type the exact same info here. You can even copy paste it between just to kind of make it easy to move about. And you'll kind of see like you just kind of have both of these options available. But you can write the description, sending info on the to the general channel or something, just to kind of know what happens within that action. So you can really start to play with this and build it out box by box. A lot of times, however, and this is what we call the empty canvas problem, right? You're kind of wondering, how do I get this done? Like, where do I get started?
I'm so glad you brought that up, right? Because I mean, to be perfectly honest, the very first time I saw this, I said, you know what one of my biggest challenges is I'm really struggling to, like, take onboarding as an example, really struggling to remember beyond the sort of obvious administrative and compliance, components. Got to sign this paperwork, you got to choose your benefits, you got to whatever. There's things to communicate to the employee, just basic, blocking and tackling stuff, right? But I want to make it juicy. I want to make it interesting. I want to make it engaging. There's other stuff I could be sending to this person, videos and warm introductions from their team and from their new manager, all these kinds of bits. And I'm like, what if I miss something? Like what? And it's no big deal. Obviously, I can go back and edit it and so forth. But it's like, when I think about this, wouldn't it be cool to sort of have sort of best practices? Like, this is what great onboarding looks like. This is, you know what I mean? And almost have, because you have this incredible low code, no code, or whatever you want to call it, quiet code in a box, if you will.
And I'm so happy you mentioned that, Jeff, because that's exactly what we're doing. So basically, you can go into the product, and we can set you up with the things that you're looking to have from out of the box best practice journeys from the beginning, right?
Okay.
So you're someone that just wants to have all the generic ones in your account, or you want to have a couple of them, then you can just click it, and you're going to have a pretty solid offboarding setup here from the get-go. And you can then just change it, move it around. I don't want it to do this, I want it to do that. And then you can just kind of move it between the places and edit it to your own needs. That's one of the things. The other thing that's there, and I'm going to show you two examples. And with so there are templates where you can look at, and it's all here on our website, like just on 50skills.com/templates. There's a bunch of them there already, and we're making it even easier to add these. So if you want to look at something like a new hire buddy program, there's a video how it's built, template that explains the whole thing, and something like it can get added to your own account in just a brief moment of time. So, and this explains it as well, like step by step, how you actually build this thing out, how it's done, how you build the forms, how you do everything. But even though that's there, this is sort of one of the magics that we're out there. So we've built a GPT trained on our existing data, and you can basically tell it and ask it to build any type of journey you want. So can you mention an example, Jeff? Something that might build.
Let's see. How about an example? How about kicking off a performance assessment process?
Performance assessment process. And even with a typo here, it's going to get that one. For new hires in a certain type of industry, let's just say in a small company in the UK, less than 300 people, something like that.
Yeah,
and
sure.
It can be detailed. It can be simple. But what it's going to do here is that it's been trained to build out the journey with the same actions that you have in the product. So you can see here, it's already kind of typing out, start with what they call the action input form, collect initial data. So you can just click the action here. Oh, it's an input form. Interesting. So I'm going to start by building out a form here. I'm just going to call it the same name here, collect initial data. And I'm going to start building out that first form step by step, where they collect the info that's needed, which could be the name of the person here. What is it? Name, position, etc. So you're literally just starting to build that first action out. The next action here then is send an email. And it's going to so it's basically walking you through how something like this could look like. So collect the data, send an email to notify people, wait for a specific date. Then when it's first month review, collect this stuff, send an email, and you kind of get the gist of it, right? So one of the things you can do is really use this as a sidekick to build out the journey opened here on the left side, and just keep the AI open as an amplifier to help
Right.
with different things.
Well, and this is the essence of what generative AI is so magical with, right? Because look, we're a couple of smart people, and you and I have a lot of experience in this space, without question. Having said that, man, this stuff gets tiresome. When you literally have to over and over and over again invent stuff from scratch,
Yeah.
and you just your brain is in 15 different places, and you're sort of like, I know there's a better way to do this. I remember reading an article just a couple of days ago. What the hell was that? Where was that? And
Yeah.
and this notion of having a trained kind of companion, if you will, and you clearly have trained this to
Yeah.
understand that the context is always ever in the journey building, right, of a particular thing. Because clearly, I mean, just based on that simple prompt that you dropped in there, that wasn't enough to kind of create stuff this explicit and this useful in the context of building out workflows. So
Yeah.
there's some magic obviously instilled in there, but it's brilliant, right? To your point, this is this is the Sherpa, the mental Sherpa that I need, kind of climbing the mountain of, oh God, I got to get this done. um, and suddenly you're going along at speed, and
Yeah.
AI is carrying a lot of the weight. This is cool.
And this is what's I'm going to open up and show you how AI works within the product as well. This is
Okay.
more like a sidekick of how it works. And here you can also you can take screenshots of a process and you can say, hey, how can I improve this, right? So, and you can it's going to analyze the picture. It's going to know it's from our product. It's going to go over it, and it's going to make some suggestions to it as well. So you can really use kind of AI as an iterative process of going,
Yeah.
look, I feel like this is taking too long or something, and you'll like for every person that goes through it, you'll get some experience of how you can do it better until the process gets to the place that you really like it to be.
Very cool.
But what I really wanted to show you here, Jeff, was the AI component and how that can be used of leverage. And there's maybe two examples that I wanted to take. One is this. Let's just take here one more time. It's a simple thing like let's just take a thing like P45s. Okay, so you have a very simple example here, and now we're using what's called the P45 analysis for Ask AI. So you have a simple form here in the beginning that looks like looks like this. It's just like somebody's like your full name, your email, and the P45 you have that's being uploaded here. Now, once that gets uploaded, the first thing it's gonna do is it's gonna run this Ask AI task here, which is a prompt that tells the AI, look, you're reviewing a copy of someone's P45, and I want you to validate if it's good enough or not, if it needs review or not, based on your kind of evaluation. And the prompt you can give it can be very detailed, can be much more detailed than the one that's here, but and can be tested and tried out to make sure that it does what you want it to do. Now the AI is going to run here, and it's going to tell you if this P45 looks good or if it needs review.
Okay.
And if it looks good, it's going to then run another action, and it's going to go and find the total earnings and tax paid that year, or it's going to figure out why it needs a review, and it's going to send that reasoning to the HR team or to the person that filled it out. So this could be like hr@companyname.com. And so all of a sudden, like things like manually going over a P45, you can start to think about, okay, instead of just having the person send it to us and then we manually go over it and then we manually do these things, you can start to take a task like that and truly automate like all the steps that are typically taken there and get the AI to come to a conclusion if it looks good, if it needs review, or if it should be broken down into more categories and have different things happening there. And this is super easy to build here. So and it can be used for so many different things. So yeah.
So this is in a way like, going back, I don't know, like 6 months ago or so, there was a huge flourish of like, oh my God, generative AI and creating chatbots, it's going to change everything, and immediately, of course, the use case for HR was, we get asked 1,000 questions a day that easily could be answered by some kind of intelligent bot that was trained and connected potentially to, the system of record, the HRIS tool or the HCM tool, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And I always ever struggled with like, yeah, but how? Like, how does it know to dive into a system and figure out how that system works, how the inputs work, how the access rights work, and everything else, and then basically to kind of review, as an example, taking holiday, right? How does it know? It's probably pretty simple, but it can tell me very quickly what it is I've accrued and have not used. And then very quickly, when I say, well, okay, cool, it's only June or July, I want to take a holiday. I know for a fact at some point in December, round about the Christmas, New Year's time, don't want it to conflict with too many people's schedules. Can you give me the best, kind of time where I'm using the least amount of holidays, that kind of thing. And it dives back into the system and it kind of looks at all that stuff, regurgitates it back out in a very lovely, wonderful, warm way. And you feel like, brilliant, cool. And then it asks you, would you like me to book that time off? And I was like, okay, hold on a minute. This is where potentially it gets hard, right? For those of us who've worked around systems for a long old time, there are a lot of protocols. There are a lot of different computer languages. There's a lot of different things to consider when you're telling a computer, a bot of some description, to go to another device, another infrastructure, potentially speaking a different language, and then go and execute these particular things. So a simple thing like that, when we're talking about it verbally, is actually potentially quite complicated. What I'm seeing here, though, is finally the inner workings of how these things actually come about, based on your very clever kind of software overlay that sits above all these disparate systems. And then basically, importantly, the HR person, with the help of AI, with the help of your best practice setups and everything else, basically can create this wonderful employee experience that is, importantly, seamless to the user, right? And so the user doesn't need to know what system is giving it this information. It just gave you exactly what you asked for within seconds, and otherwise automated a whole string of events, basically, that now nobody has to worry about because they've already been set in motion. So that's really interesting, very fascinating.
And you're spot on. Yeah, and I couldn't have worded it better, because, for example, here, let's say that someone wants to know on their P45 the output of the total earnings and tax paid this year. Let's just say that's the case. What they would see is just the portal that they always go to and just submit, like upload your P45, and the AI they'll never see this workflow or what happens here, but the AI will take care of it. And once it's figured it out, it doesn't have to send an email. It could send an email. Let's just say here, just to change this up here, it could send an email to the person that filled it out, to the traveler that filled this out. Just send it to them and say, hey, here, like this, hey, here is your total earnings and tax paid this year. It could be an email like this for that person. And then you basically, because you asked the AI about it here, just put the value and he's going to get email sent. But you also might want to, and this is to your point, you also might want to update a record somewhere. You might want to update in your HRIS, which could be a system like Personio. You would have a new field here that would just be update records. And you just click that field, and then you'd fill out the things that this system needs, like the person's email, like their whatever questions are being asked for that particular thing. And if this field would be called P45 total earnings or something, you could basically put that in here, and it would update that record in that system. So all of a sudden, you've kind of mixed these things together to typically this is often solved by notifying someone who has access to the system to go into that system and then do it.
Exactly.
But here you can have the tools do that for you.
That's very cool. Very cool. And it typically too, like in recent experiences in the past 2 years, I remember I worked for an AI insurtech company, and the poor CTO, right, for his sins, on top of having to think the big fat heady thoughts about the new AI products we're going to kind of build and deliver, he was also in charge of all the IT infrastructure in the company, all the new hires coming on board, all the people exiting the company, where the equipment is, what updates needed to get done, everything else. He used to help me a lot with Zapier, or Zapier, I think they're now calling it. That's what it's meant to be. Zapier. Zapier is one of those really cool tools that kind of helps you basically kind of knit together seamlessly a whole bunch of bits of software and get them to communicate with each other. Having said that, I wasn't allowed to touch it because he said it's complicated. It takes a bit of coding kind of thinking and experience to kind of get it to work, and then we have to test it to make sure it works and everything else. And I'm like, okay, that sucks, because it felt like, oh, I was about to learn something really powerful, but I guess not. And now what you're showing me here is even a bumpkin like me, who doesn't know any computer coding relationships. Importantly, I can actually just literally click, drag, and drop, and connect all of this stuff together, and just make things happen. This is very cool, very useful.
And this is one of the most powerful things, because I mean, and this integrates with things like Zapier. So like, if somebody has a like major workflow built in, they don't want to touch it, but somebody wants to use this, and can just trigger that onwards. So it's really, it can both be an amplifier of whatever existing process that you have. So you might have a killer onboarding process within some, you mentioned ERP tool or whatever, but it might not have a good new buddy hire system or something. You could plug something in here and just go, okay, just new hire buddy system. And whenever that onboarding thing triggers in the other thing, it's going to trigger this one, and you can manage that. The other thing the system can do is be that system of record. So for example, in the P45, you're going to get that overview. And here you can see all the people who've gone through the P45. And this person here, Zelensky, for example, he uploaded a P45. It needed review. And you can see how that journey got completed, right? Like all the actions have run here. And imagine this was your, a big onboarding, for example, where you've had hundreds of people going through it. You can see how every single individual has traveled through it, how every single thing got completed, how the responses were from every single one.
So it actually it maintains an audit trail in essence.
Yeah. And I can show you a good example of this one for a fun journey, for example. And we can try this out on you or something else. But we built this one for just the fun of it. We had at one of the events the other day, we had something called Guess the Bird. So it's a fun, completely different type of journey, right? So you have a bird here, and we're gonna do this live now, Jeff. So we're gonna play with this. So what do you think this is?
Oh God, I've actually never seen that bird before, but I want to go. I want to go with, I don't know. Call it it's a female eagle. Okay, fine. Yeah, put an eagle. God,
anything. I will write something fun facts about you, Jeff. What would be something?
Doesn't know jack about birds. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Don't know anything much about birds. Yeah, there you go. And otherwise, am really passionate about AI and deep technologies. Loves science fiction and astronomy. I almost said astrology. Astronomy.
Gotcha. So we'll have this here, and we'll just put in Jeff here, and we'll just put in some email that we can use here for the fun of it, and like this here. Okay, we'll send this out. So what's going to happen now, I'm going to show you, is that we have, Jeff, you just got added here. Now this is running. This is automatically running. The AI just reviewed this. It came to the conclusion that your guess was incorrect. It was an incorrect guess joke.
Good.
And it just sent a text message, because I put in my own phone number here. So I just got a text message on my phone because that's what it's asked to do. And it also sent a message on Slack. And I can take a look at what happened here. So basically, it came to the conclusion here that, the prompt here is pretty basic. The prompt here is that this is a golden plower here. And if it's correct, just type correct or incorrect. So those are the two conditions, right? Okay. Now, if it's incorrect, what we wanted to do then is to write a joke about the wrong guess and make sure it's no longer than what you can send in a text message, 160 characters. And the text you just got was this one. Looks like you confused the golden plower with a bird from Star Wars. Maybe next time, program an AI to make it work. And again, so what's interesting about this is a personalized message joke that you got, right?
Yep.
So everybody that's gone through it, and I can show you if I just kind of walk through here, like there's a bunch of people who've done this. Rachel here, for example, she got it incorrect. She got a completely different joke, right? Like, looks like your guest flew off the different country, like whatever, based on what she said.
Yeah.
The interesting part here is whenever somebody signs up any type of form on the internet, typically what happens is that you get some sort of a confirmation for signing up for it. In this new age of AI that we have, you can you can, sure, you can confirm the sign up or whatever it was, but you can also make it actually personalized, fun, and engaging by having AI commands like the one in this journey, have it tell a joke or something personalized or some suggestions for the person based on who they are, which completely changes the whole game. So if you think about this from an experience standpoint, if you are an employee and you're getting all these messages from your workplace, like they're almost never personalized. Like the personalization that you put in them today, in today's world, is something like, hey, first name, how are you doing today, or something, happy birthday.
Recording.
But in this case, you can actually do it truly personalized.
Cool. That is unbelievable. I'm very sorry about that. I literally sit next to the front door, and my son had only just come home a second before. So there you go, folks. This is a life in the fast lane. That is truly cool, and I love the notion that basically it does keep a record, because that was one of the challenges.
Yeah.
And of course, we always have to bring this up, and it's important because let's face it, in the world of HR, especially in Europe, the EU makes it very, very difficult sometimes to operate without our ability, frankly, to go deep dive into any process, into any situation, into any scenario, and basically cough up with great transparency and accuracy all the things that actually happened, such that either the employee is informed, the government's informed, I don't know, whoever it is, the employer, whatever it is. It's difficult. It's challenging. This AI stuff scares the heck out of a lot of people because, oh dear God, this thing might run amok. It might take my sensitive personal internal information and share it with the entire internet. These kinds of things. And of course, the EU legislation that's only just been put in place, intelligently and capably, but quite broadly, talks about notions of being able to be transparent, being able to identify specifically, why is it that you needed this process? Why did you need this individual's information? What is it you actually did with it? And can you audit that? Can you show us? And I looked at that legislation and I thought to myself, oh God, there it is, the death of AI, the end of AI in HR. But look, it seems as if, I think you made it very clear. It looks as if you guys have cracked that nut. You basically have created a place where people can go back and say, this is what happened with this process, and this is why basically it did what it did, and who it did it to, and all this other kind of stuff. That's really clever.
You're spot on. Altne here, he went through this journey. It started. This is what the AI was asked to do. This is the prompt. This is the output. This is where it did it again. This is the prompt. This is the output. For every single individual going through every single journey, you'll know exactly where the AI was used, how it was used, what it was asked to do, what the output was, and why something happened.
Cool.
And I think that's huge because I don't think we're going to move into a world where someone says, hey, build me an onboarding funnel for new pilots at this airline. And then the next person that comes in, just run them through it. That's not going to happen, Jeff. What's going to happen is that you come up with something like, hey, build me a suggested workflow for this. You can see how it looks like. You go over it. You put it in a place where you kind of stamp it and go, this is what we want. We've taken a look at this. We might have iterated a couple of things from the AI, and then you push people through it. But you want to be in control. You want to think of this as an amplifier.
Yeah.
Instead of being completely, going rogue without you knowing what's happening there.
Yeah, no, without question, absolutely. Because that just, again, that's the part that scares the heck out of people. And if you can't explain how the thing works, then of course, and it's going to be a challenge to all these HR tech companies out there. If you're going to do business in Europe, you've got to be able to comply in this way, very much the way that you guys look like you're almost setting the standard here. But that's exactly what we need to be able to do, is just literally go back and say, what actually happened? Where did it go? Is it aligned to and or in compliance with your intention? That kind of a thing. Okay, well done.
And that's sort of where we want to get to. We want to get to a place where people can go, okay, look, these are, if I go here back, these are like all of our processes. This is where people can trigger them. And you might not want to have people trigger them at all on their own. You could also be a manager that needs to do this on your own. But if you want your employees to be able to start a process on their own, this is where you can point them out to go.
And And that list is not definitive. What you just showed, that's just an example, right?
That's just an example. You can add as many as you want.
Yeah.
You can have as many as you want. You can have them completely different, customizable, and they can also be in whatever system you use. So you might be using SharePoint or Microsoft Teams or Slack. Like, where do you want them to actually go and find these? And you can have it in one place or many. Like, it's all customizable.
Cool.
And the thing where you want to get to is you want to get to a place where you have a bunch of things that you've built as an employer. Like, these are all of our processes. This is what we've done. And this is how we run onboarding. These are all the people that have gone through it. This is how that happened. You want to be able to have that record there. And every time somebody goes through a process, you can review that and you can say, okay, is this the way we want it to get done? Is there any iterative thing we want to make sure happens here? And then just change it up, add a new thing, move things around. And then the next person that goes through it, they're going to go through that newly updated process, and you're going to have the tracking of everything that happened. So that's the stuff that we can offer to people that kind of join this program.
Yeah, and that's great because I mean, again, the frustration has, in my experience up until now, as much as these companies talk about integratability, right, as a term, and they're like, oh yeah, we integrate. Just go check out our online store, and you'll see all the different apps we integrate with and everything else, and it's dead easy. You know, we have an open API key, and for those of you who don't know what that is, it's a string of code that basically kind of says this machine can talk to this machine, and this specifically is the information that basically we want to kind of be able to pull from it broadly. This is my simplistic approach to it, but without that, you obviously don't. You have just basically a wall between them. So I get excited and I'm like, oh, you have integratability. That's brilliant. You know, I'll have that then. And then you get it, and then you set up the API key if you're able, if they make it that simple. And then you realize that from, say, the ATS recruitment system, you know, once somebody has signed their contract, they then should flow, their information should flow into the HCM or HRIS system or whatever the case. And possibly there's an onboarding tool somewhere in there as well. And all that should just, you know, be quite seamless. It's never seamless. It always feels clunky. It always feels like, oh, you were so close. This was going to be so cool. And then it wasn't. You know what I mean? Like it would like send things in the wrong format or whatever the case. And you're like, oh, that's not what I want. Anyway, and you couldn't correct it. And it was just, you know, so anyway, this notion of integratability is clumsy. It's slow. It's not always accurate, and it's not typically configurable in terms of fixing it. What I love about 50 Skills and the work you guys have done here is clearly in the design of what you're putting together. You always ever had in mind the user journey and the experience, and that notion that you guys will rise above the different disparate units that sit up underneath it. And you'll say, we can connect with all that stuff. And we can bring stuff from here, put it over here, and we can just make it all kind of flow. In addition to all your communication systems, right? In addition to, you know, whatever tools that you guys are using where this information is meant to work, suddenly I kind of feel like, wow, this is a big piece of tech that I hadn't even considered, but always desperately wanted. So it's really interesting how you've created this.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. Absolutely, and I couldn't agree more with, when you're building great products, you need to start with the customer in mind. Yeah. And you need to work your way backwards towards the tech you want to use to build that. That's the only way you can do it. And if you start with the tech in mind and then try to force people through that, you're going to end up with them doing it in a certain way. But that's the thing. You got to start with, what are those foundations that need to be there for this thing to work, and then make sure that gets built in a way that kind of magic can happen. Because you can't have an amazing user experience of building a workflow that does this unless you've built it in a certain way. It can't be like a feature that you add 10 years after you started. It can't.
Right. Exactly right. And that's what I love about this, right? Is that you guys saw the world as sort of these fractionalized, you know, sets of activities with different different build types, different looks and feels. different experiences for the user, different navigation, kind of pathways, and clearly you were like, this is rubbish. This is not what we call a happy, wonderful employee experience. And look, it's more than that, right? We're not just looking to make people smile and say, "Oh, that was really easy. Thank you." It's much more than that. It's streamlining and efficiency. This is the essence of what business is. Great businesses are highly efficient. Great businesses manage time well.
Yeah.
Great businesses get to profit and get to revenue generation because they're better, smarter, faster than other systems around them, right? And this is the essence of what it is you've built is, and I have a follow-on question after this. I'm going to let you speak. That this is magic to an HR person. This is the kind of rubbish that you basically, the entirety of my 35 years up until now, I've spent verbally picking up phones and explaining to people, like, this is how the maternity policy, this is how to book.
Yeah.
Oh, for God's sake, honestly. And what I want to do is I want to have a conversation with the board, and I want to say to them, hey, let me help plan our next merger or acquisition. Let us plan together our new product development and maybe the sunsetting of 3 other products. And I'll help you with the migration of talent, through our brand new skills, competency model, ontology, whatever you want to call it. And I want to be able to focus on strategic, cool stuff like that and actually use all of, as opposed to the fraction of my melon that I spent basically overworking, managing these ridiculous micro issues over and over again. So sorry, go ahead, speak.
No, I was just going to say, like, I think what's on the note that you mentioned with productivity as well, I think like this is the new age that we're coming into. We need to rethink how we do things. And I think with these processes, what needs to happen is that people need to wonder that in the age of AI, the only way it's going to move forward with our product or others, right? Mm-hmm. The only way things are going to move forward and progress is that people need to document how they think they want things to be, and perhaps how things are today, and then how they're going to get to the place where they want things to be. That's the only way you can actually make these things happen. Yeah. And so it is really about the reason why you want to document the way you do things or how you want things to get done is because that's how you can actually get AI to help. And you can do it in a one-on-one conversation with the AI to do a bunch of these tasks. But the magic really happens once you put on true automation, which is a funnel goes through and there is this flow that takes care of everything. And once you've gone through that flow 10 times or 10 million times, whatever it is, you're able to take iterative steps towards where you want to be. So it's kind of like in the aviation industry, like they make the planes better, and they've been doing so every single year since they started, right? Mm-hmm. Because they learn from every single flight. And now I honestly think we're getting to a place where with AI and certain tech, you're able to do the same thing. You're literally able to learn from every single process that's gone through and think, could we do this better and how? And I even think we're going to get to a stage. I don't think I'm going to be the one. We're going to have templates, Jeff, with a bunch of stuff, right? Mm-hmm. But I'm not going to be the one who's going to invent this stuff. The people who are going to make the best journeys are people who really know this stuff in their head, right? Yeah. They know like all the hard and soft parts of HR. Yeah. And they're gonna build up the right type of process because they know that in some areas you need to have that space for one-on-one deep human intervention, contact, communication. Indeed. And in other places you need the hardcore tech to take care of the boring admin stuff. Mm-hmm. And they're gonna make some magic. And of course, we want to get to a place where those people can share those journeys with other managers, right?
Yes,
and definitely. We truly get to like the best in practice journeys for the right industries, right-sized companies, all that stuff. So, I mean,
look, you just nailed this, right? I mean, because this is a thing that other of my favorite vendors use. There's a company called Culture Amp as an example that kind of focuses on employee engagement and performance management, development, that kind of thing. Very cool stuff. But one of the cool things about their business model is that they've got something like 7,000 customers globally, and they pull down some of the best examples of solutions that have come off the back, right? Remedies that have come off the back of some negative employee engagement data, for instance, and they post that stuff. They actually build it into their tool so it becomes a repository, becomes sort of a library of this is the best stuff we've seen out there, and here are the proof points, and here's how to implement it. I love that notion that you're talking potentially about creating this iterative feedback model, and then kind of posting this, because that's the essence of it too, right? I'm not a genius, and I could be missing a bunch of stuff in terms of how these journeys ought to work to maximize the user experience. And there's a bunch of stuff I bet I'm forgetting. I could wait till a bunch of mistakes get made and people start throwing me hate mail, over Slack and saying, this sucked. Can you please fix this and get to the right place? But wouldn't it be fun to kind of start out with some stuff that's actually considered fairly world beating? Isn't that kind of cool? So that's really cool. That's awesome. Go ahead. Sorry, I interrupted.
No. I think, I also just love the fact when people get that importance of how it should be built. And I noticed there was one stat, I think it was in one of the new articles that came out from Josh Bersin, I think, University or something. He was talking about that in a work environment where everything is productive, you actually become more productive yourself in the way you think and the way you do things. So you kind of see everything around you is done in this efficient manner, and you start to think the same way. And so instead of doing something in an manual, redundant way, taking the same amount of time each time, you kind of start to think differently. And I think this was pretty interesting. So just putting people, like, it's kind of like if you play in the pro leagues, you get better.
I was just going to say this. So I suck at golf. Let me just say that right up front. I am never, ever in my life going to brag about my golf game. And I always noticed every time I go and play golf, either I go out with my silly buddies who go out and probably drink too much and frankly don't pay attention, of course, slice the ball and do all sorts of horrible things out on the course that you're never meant to do, swing wise and everything else. And then what do? I follow suit, right? As maybe I'm sober, maybe I'm kind of fit or whatever the case, and I'm concentrating like hell trying to show these guys up, and I can't do it. Like, I just can't rise to the level of the average mediocre player around me, because I don't feel like I'm learning from anybody. You know what I mean? I'm not kind of following anybody. My brain's therefore not processing. This is what great looks like. Go do that. But when I played with people who are amazing, oh my God, it's like my brain just locks on their technique and watches where their feet are, watches how their hands come. And you're absolutely spot on about that. This notion of kind of feeding from the best, learning from the best, is a great concept, a great idea. I love that. I love that notion.
And maybe the final point to mention here is just it's just that another thing that's often come up in dialogue are companies saying that they want to have a transparent process around however they do different things, and they're hiring transparent, like and the way they do promotions is transparent, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
But what if you'd share that process, Jeff? What if you would actually share, because you can, in some of these notions, you can actually build the process. You can share it externally to people see how it happens. They're not seeing the people that go through it, but they are seeing how the evaluation takes place, where the AI is there, where people evaluate it, the criteria that they follow, whatever it might be. And I think that's a new way of thinking transparency, right? Like, you don't need to necessarily go through the audit of how it's done, but like you could share that externally as well with people around you.
Yeah, you could actually literally kind of take a snapshot of the whole thing, and then kind of you could even explain it to them and walk them through it. But look, I mean, fair pay practices and transparent pay practices is coming to town,
absolutely,
isn't it? Yeah, already an issue in the U.S. Yeah. And to be able to kind of say, well, this is how we determine our relative pay levels and everything else, and who gets paid what and all that kind of jazz. Yeah, that's huge.
And even Jeff, and even to say, and if anyone has a suggestion of how to improve this, click this button and start your own journey with that. And this is how we even go through that, right? So you can even have there's so many ways of rethinking things that we can now do because of technology. That's
amazing. Geez, I could literally, Kristjan, spend the entire rest of today talking to you about this, but we have to wrap this up. Our poor listeners, I suspect, our viewers are probably just completely overwhelmed by all this cool stuff. How can people engage with 50 skills? What is the best place to go and figure out how does it all happen?
Yeah. So easiest way to do is just to go to our website. Our pricing and everything is completely transparent. Talk to our team, book a meeting, or just buy it with a credit card to get started.
Okay.
Our success team is full on in making sure people kind of get up and get what they want out of this. The last thing we want is unhappy customers. So we want to make sure that people get up and running and get this thing to work the way they want it to be. We have a ton of courses and videos and communities and everything around it. We're going to a bunch of events as well, but just reach out on our website, find us on LinkedIn, send us messages, whatever it might be. And then we're working with a bunch of really smart people who are coming on board, people like yourself, Jeff, and others that can really help companies with this as well. And that's the thing that I think is super important, that we need more evangelists that know what this thing is,
Yeah.
and can help employers make the right calls and rethinking the way they structure things.
Yeah, and what I like about what your tool does is that you clearly have the capacity and frankly fair pricing to kind of deal with the small to medium sized enterprise without question. And I think that group typically really gets missed out on relative to being sort of a target market for a lot of HR tech tools, which is frustrating because this stuff is so crucial, so central.
Yep.
But you also can very easily kind of move up into the enterprise space equally as well. So your tool
Yeah,
doesn't require, you know what I mean?
try
Yeah.
to think of it in a similar way like Zoom in the beginning. Like Zoom is really
Right.
something that everybody were able to use, from the
Yep.
enterprise to the small businesses. But we started with the small businesses in mind, because I really think that some of the best products out there, that's where they started. They started
Yeah.
with the small companies, and then they grew into the larger ones.
Yeah, no, spot on. Because I mean, that's frankly where the magic happens. I love this notion. This is cool because it's also right up my street in terms of wanting desperately to kind of shake the HR tree, the legacy HR tree, and to kind of get people to wake up to the fact that now you can actually start going on that strategic journey that you always ever wanted to kind of engage with, because a lot of this other stuff can be handled by a 50 skills, right? And all of your system integration issues and the lack of connectivity and the miserable employee experience, that stuff now goes away. And instead, you're saying, hey, how about a wonderful, seamless, fulsome experience that's consistent, that works like it ought to, that is configurable and fixable, that is publishable, to the right parties when necessary, to actually go and get stuff done. Folks, beat your way to this website. This is this is what you have to engage with. I absolutely love it, Kristjan. You've been an absolute prince, and thank you so much, mate, for spending more time with me today. I can't wait to get the word out. This is terrific, and thank you for that.
Likewise, Jeff. Thank you so much. Cheers.
Okay, no worries.